We're going to start with freedom of speech, Mike.
Yes, indeed. Thanks, Charles. Last Thursday, the Metropolitan Police raided the Westminster Quaker Meeting House to arrest 6 women who had met to discuss Gaza, amongst other things. Climate was one of the other things. Now, this group of women were part of what was described as a welcome meeting for an organisation called Youth Demand, which calls itself a non-violent protest group. Now, here's their website. Sorry, here's their website, if we can get it to work. Sorry about that. Here we go. Now, you'll look at the style of this and you might say that it's very reminiscent of the style of Extinction Rebellion and Just Stop Oil. And in fact, their activists carry out a very similar style of protest, using spray paint, for example, defacing works of art and so on. So now the police themselves handcuffed the women and seized their belongings, and they were then taken to the police station. And their student flats were raided and searched. The police were armed with tasers. And though I totally disagree with the style of protest that these organizations use, protest, is one thing, criminal damage is another, particularly items of cultural significance. But there is the possibility that these organizations are in fact agents of the state. But whether or not that's the case, their tactics are certainly being used by the state as an excuse for limitations on protest and for exactly the type of police activity that we're seeing here. Now, going back to this Quaker press release that on their website, they, aside from thanking everyone for their support, they're saying the following: that since the introduction of the Police Crime Sentencing and Courts Act 2022 and the Public Order Act 2023, the right to protest has been severely restricted. Vague and sweeping definitions, that's my emphasis, by the way, vague and sweeping definitions mean that even discussing peaceful protest can be criminalized. They go on to say this is not just about the actions of the police, but about laws that undermine democracy itself. In a democratic society, people must have the right to assemble and to speak out, even when their views challenge those in power. We've been reporting the issue of freedom of speech related to Gaza for quite some time now, and Richard Medhurst, a perfect example of this. With people in the UK being arrested by the British regime under terror legislation. Richard Medhurst, to say, is one of these people, and the campaign to shut him up has apparently now moved also to Austria, where he has been experiencing similar treatment to the type of treatment he's been receiving in the UK. And so we've got the UK behaving like this with people in Quaker houses. We've got, and also Richard Medhurst and Vanessa Beeley and others. We'll talk to Vanessa in a second on this, and also in Europe. But anyone that thought that the Donald Trump regime would be the bastion of free speech is getting a rude awakening there as well. Because here is a video. Let's just have a look at this. This video clip is showing a group of people in plain clothes. Now, they weren't initially masked, but they very quickly masked up. Here, from this CCTV footage, they offered no identification. They eventually said that they were the police, but they only said they were police. They didn't actually offer any proper ID. This girl was lifted without due process or explanation, and it became subsequently, it came to light that she'd been removed to a detention center in Louisiana. Now, the reason for the arrest and her removal, well, apparently it was because she was involved in writing an opinion piece for the Tufts Daily, which is a student-run newspaper at Tufts University. Now, the article criticised the university for its stance on Gaza, and in the article, there was no advocating for violence, there was no support for terrorism, there was no criticism of the US government. But even if there were, the article was published in March 2024 when Biden was president. So why it's taken them, this is clearly a new policy that we're seeing in action here. And this is happening across the United States. So she was eventually dragged off by these people, all masked up and so on. Now, just so that you can see the article, this is the op-ed, Try Again, President Kumar. This is the president of the university, renewing calls for Tufts to adopt the March 4th TCU Senate resolutions. So that was the article that they published. But what we're seeing is this behavior right across the UK, the European Union. Many people remaining silent on what's going on, perhaps because they're pro-Israel, or perhaps because they don't like Muslims too much. But I think this is a naive and dangerous position to take. What we saw in that video looked like what we might expect from the conscription gangs in Ukraine or from Nazi Germany. And Niemöller's poem comes to mind here. And that might seem like a cliche to some, but it really does, to me, seem appropriate. Vanessa, we've got about a minute there. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, yeah, I mean, we're seeing this complete ramping up of really Gestapo tactics, particularly from the Trump administration. The videos being put out about those that are being deported to El Salvador, for example, is just insane. And of course, the UK was leading in this kind of discrimination against anyone protesting government policy. But now, under Trump, the US seems to be catching up.
You any thoughts?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I think you alluded to it, but the way in which the funding of protests to engineer a particular result in the sort of problem, reaction, solution dialectic is very evident. I mean, we've seen this time and again. It's exactly what's on the horizon with the crime and policing bill now. And also, again, this very disturbing trend of any sort of implicit criticism of Israel being regarded as somehow anti-Semitic and therefore illegal or unlawful. It is an absolute disgrace. So that